Hello there, welcome to another ramble. I don't know how I'm going to stitch this conversation together as usual, but I kind of want to hit on the topic of, um, how do I say, healthy relationships, unhealthy relationships, having a critical spirit, and so forth. Let's just get into it. Let's just try to tie these subjects together. Okay, so I think in life we are constantly striving towards balance, consciously or unconsciously. We're always trying to maintain some type of balance. And I know whenever you feel any type of heaviness or discomfort, that's just your body or your mind or whatever, your way of telling yourself that you are not balanced and you are not aligned. Sorry, I have to adjust my chair. So we're all constantly striving towards balance, balance in everything, balanced emotions, balanced mental health, physical health, everything. Because anytime anything is off kilter, that's when things feel uncomfortable or things are seeming to go awry, if that even makes sense. I was looking at some of the relationships I've been participating in. I've also been looking at myself to check my gauge on how healthy my interactions have been with others and with myself. And I think life, with its ebb and flow, will always constantly be in a constant state of change. And if you're not able to adapt to these changes, then that's when suffering and struggle incurs. So I think the best way to go about it is to be resilient and adaptable and just kind of try to constantly move with the tides instead of against it. Because anytime there's any form of resistance, then that's when a lot of, I want to say, fighting and conflict occurs within oneself and outside of oneself. I'm not saying like if something bad happens to, how do I say? I don't know how to elaborate on this train of thought, but if something that we perceive to be bad occurs, I think we have a tendency to go into fight or flight mode. For instance, someone's throwing a punch at you. I'm not a fighter. I don't know anything about self-defense or martial arts, but I'm assuming somebody is throwing a punch at you. Suffering occurs when you allow that person to hit you, but there's also ways of kind of deflecting it by just kind of moving to the side, so that the energy doesn't necessarily affect you so much. I mean, it's obviously still there, that generation and force of energy, but instead of allowing it to connect with you in such a defensive way, you can also just kind of let it slide by, and just still flow with it. I think most people get very fixated on the fist or the contact instead of just kind of seeing it and then just kind of moving out of the way. I don't know. I know for most of my life I have avoided confrontation, but in this part of my life I have garnered tools to utilize confrontation in a gracious manner. Does that make sense? before I'd avoid it. I disliked any form of conflict, any type of confrontation, but I've noticed that there is a way of graciously confronting people, and you don't have to be disrespectful, you don't have to be mean or rude, you can actually just be very forward and honest. And the way the other person responds, obviously based on their emotional maturity level, they'll either like have a mature conversation with you to understand and discuss ways of supporting each other in that particular moment, or they're immature, they'll probably throw a fit because they're not getting their way and they don't know how to communicate themselves well, which is also okay, because we're all learning, right? Some of us are infants, some of us are adults, some of us are teenagers, and it's all part of the process. We're all growing together. Anyways, I have a mild cold, so if I sound stuffy or I look horrible, that's why. Who cares? Upgrading my system. So where was I going? Healthy relationships, unhealthy relationships, and there's a term for it I've just discovered: critical spirit. Sorry, I had to refer to my notes. Critical spirit. So I've noticed, I've been doing a lot of self-analysis lately, just to kind of like pinpoint my triggers, to understand them and to understand how to remedy them. And I think I try not to make my rambles revolve around an INFJ, because I think this can be applicable to anyone if you're going through this, irregardless of your personality type. But I notice like INFJs, although also other personality types, we have tendency to lean towards critical spirit. Critical spirit meaning somebody who is constantly criticizing, constantly analyzing, constantly picking things apart in order to strive towards some perfectionistic mindset or expectation that we've set upon ourselves or others. And the critical spirit let's just acknowledge it for what it is, because I think we should acknowledge everything as it is, and to understand why it exists and how it is useful, and if it is still useful in everyday interactions. So on one end of the spectrum, I think the critical spirit is there for the mind. It's there for the mind, so that the mind can understand things to a higher degree or a higher level in order to process information, in order to bring about outcomes that may be preferred in regards to a particular expectation. I think that's great, but if you do it on an extreme level, it can become very unhealthy and toxic really quickly. Like when you're constantly criticizing or nitpicking. I think there's constructive criticism and destructive criticism, if that even makes sense. Constructive criticism is when you're trying to analyze something and criticize something in order to enhance it. But then even that can go wrong very quickly and turn toxic, especially when you're pushing beyond, like, I don't know, like to a point of intrusion, I suppose, where you're trying to like force your criticism upon other things and people when it may not be applicable to them. you know, because everybody has their own preference, everybody has their own mindset, everybody has their own expectations, priorities, you know. So I think it gets really toxic when you're being intrusive and impeding and you're trying to implement something upon someone else that may not be in alignment with their value system. It's like very disrespectful, and we need to, I guess, to some degree, realize that and become aware of that particular trait. You know, I used to be highly critical. I've made videos on this of myself and probably on others, and yeah, that can create a lot of tension and conflict, and can like break things apart. It can become very destructive very quickly. So you need to monitor that critical spirit within yourself, you know, and know when to adjust it to like be less harsh, if that even makes sense. Along with critical spirit, it's kind of tied in with your relationships with yourself, with others, an unhealthy or healthy relationship with others and yourself, because depending on the degree of the critical spirit within you and how much you allow it to run your life and your decisions and your interactions and your thought process, it can like make things quite unpleasant, you know, because I think the critical spirit has a lot of anger and tension and resentment behind it, because it's very ego driven, I feel. So like on the low, critical spirit can be very destructive. On a high, it can be very can help you to navigate through life in a very gracious manner, you know, because you know what you want, what you don't want, etc. Am I even making sense? I don't really know at this point, and I'm pretty groggy, so who knows if I'm making sense. I don't know, I've been processing a lot of stuff. There's so much more stuff that I would like to talk about, but this is already going to 13 minutes long, and I don't even know if I made sense, as usual. But yeah, you should become aware of your critical spirit within you and how it directly or indirectly affects your relationships with yourself and with others, you know, because I saw this video. This guy was talking about the critical spirit, and he was like, you know, anytime you're criticizing, if you were to look at yourself in the mirror, most of the time you're like doing this, you know, when you're criticizing, you know. So criticizing is kind of like condemning. He's like, but you know, if you're feeling joy, and also when you're criticizing and you're condemning, there's like I said, there is a irritant behind the criticism. You know, why are you criticizing? Why are you like doing this? Why are you doing that? Why are you like this? Why are you like that? Why aren't you fulfilling my needs? Why aren't you, you know, it's just like there's like this negative energetic charge behind criticism, you know. But if you're not being critical, you're not judging anything, then your face should be relaxed and calm and joyful and peaceful, right? Yeah. And I'm not saying I'm innocent, highly critical, but I'm trying to upgrade my program and retrain my mind to be less critical and more compassionate, if that even makes sense. That doesn't mean, you know what? I'm just gonna say it straight up. Like, if somebody is not treating me correctly, I do not tolerate that. I get it. That's how you are. You obviously have things that you need to contend with within yourself that you're outwardly projecting at me. But if I am not treated with respect and kindness and the care that I deserve, then I get to choose where I'm going to and how I'm going to give my attention to anything or anyone. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to continue investing in anything that is destructive or chaotic. You know what I mean? Like, I will recognize the destruction, I will recognize the chaos, but that doesn't mean I will participate in it, you know? I just feel like, and same, like if I'm being like an asshole, sorry, excuse my French, then I don't expect you to put up with me either. And if you value our friendship or connection or interaction, then you can speak to me kindly and with respect. And if you cannot do that, then I do not have time. I don't have time. By the way, I've had comments with people like trying to like have coffee and stuff. Yeah. Although I appreciate that, I don't even know you really. And it's kind of off-putting, if I'm gonna be honest. It's off-putting. I don't know you, and you're being too forward and too direct and too frank. It takes me a while to trust people, and I'm not just gonna be like, yeah, let's go have coffee. You know what I mean? No offense, thank you, but no thank you. Anyways, thank you for listening. I don't think I'm gonna post this, but have a wonderful day and blessings to one and all. Amen.